Hey traders, hold on. Okay, now we can talk trading on a live stream. Okay, so last night was interesting. We had the market move and it had a little bit of struggles and it got up. We had a gap up this morning, and the thing we were looking for, if you remember, was hitting the stops that I thought were probably about here. What we ended up getting was a move right to the expansion bar that drove the entire sweep down. So we rolled this whole thing over. And right when we hit it, it just, the inventory that the market makers had picked up, they dumped. They dumped all the inventory they had sitting in their pockets. They didn't want it. And the market didn't get up to where I thought the stops were probably sitting at. Looking at tension with it popping up and then moving higher into that test, I'm going to bet that a lot of people dumped their positions if they had short yesterday. You probably dumped through here, but I was expecting here, so it didn't get to where I wanted to see it go. Now, the next thing to happen here is really interesting. We basically just spent the whole morning moving right down to the expansion bar target from the lows. I wasn't expecting much expansion bar inventory at the lows because of the way that yesterday set up. The best spot I thought was about here. We had some bulls sitting here, and that would be the root position. So we really rolled back to put pressure on the root position from yesterday. Interesting. Well, as we got there, look at this. We got ourselves that zero test, the one that the bears just really couldn't pull off the last couple days when they were getting elasticity. They just couldn't get it. So this is going to be something we're going to be working analysis towards, this 30-minute zero test. And we need to figure out, are these bulls defending the 30-minute zero test or are they not? This is the expectation that we need to build. We need to be able to say, well, is this a spot where the bulls are going to pick this back up and shoot it back up tomorrow or into the close? If we can't answer that question, then this zero test isn't really all that useful. So that's the goal that we're going to be looking forward to answering. The first sample we got today, you see this, we popped down right here. We got a sample, we got a signal, but we didn't get volume for that signal until way down here. And that kind of distance between the signal and the volume, that's a lot. So it's very unorganized. It didn't line up. We didn't get the volume at the right spot. So I'm going to kind of loosely mark that. But remember, that was really unorganized. I would just say that they didn't get the volume trigger off of it. The signal happened up here in this little range with the market, where the market makers were dumping their inventory, and we didn't get the volume response until down here. So I'm going to loosely mark it because they sort of line up, but yeah. The next signal we didn't get until velocity leaned down into another signal here. And this one's really interesting. You could see that portfolio orders picked up a small amount right into there, and it looks like a buy the dip order. So much more motivating to see this one. Flipping over here to look at tension. There was not much of tension impact as the bulls had a price response. So tension wasn't really rising. It wasn't rising after the bulls looked like they hit. It drove velocity up into a bearish sample. So here's our players. We had a hit here, but the hit failed. And the failure was this tension didn't rise. The bulls did nothing. Again, we see a nod. Now this nod worked out much better. These bears saw that bulls were doing nothing. They failed to hit tension, and they came in and said, okay, thank you. And boom, they started to hit, and they drove things down And you can see as we pushed in, the expectation here is for this bullish sample here to do nothing, which you could see they did nothing because they already established that by failing to impact tension. So it's just like move out of the way, bears. So we got the things we needed. We needed a nod where the bulls do nothing and they just totally impacted nothing. Then we need it to move up into a bearish sample. Now, again, we have that same problem we had yesterday. There's not a lot of room to run. And yesterday, the bears tried to do this, and it really burned them. They were right here, remember? So today, I think they did much better. They were able to impact. They drove this all the way down just as hard as they could to get that 30-minute as far through as humanly possible. And the thing they ran into was the expansion bar here. Now, what happened to the expansion bars is market makers like to dump their inventory. I didn't expect as much inventory out of this one as the one at the highs. So, but we still, that's how expansion bars work. So we tag it almost to the tick, it pops up out of it. Now the bears are in a situation here where they have 30-minute tension looking pretty good. They're going to have to continue to pump this, meaning that they're going to need to get this down even further. I mean, they're just going to have to keep going if they want to actually establish any real control over the market. They did get elasticity with the nod. They did get a position in their place, so they got the root position here. They were able to drive the market down. I mean, they're in a pretty good position to gain some control over the market, but you have to pump a market. So the next thing that these guys really need is to trap in a participant. So looking at this, it looks to me like there was some acceleration right here on this bar, like we were going at a speed and then boop, kind of dropped down. And I'm thinking that a lot of these players right here, any shadow players, probably dumped through here. These guys didn't impact tension. So if they're shadow traders, they're going to be trying to, well, there's institutions or anybody who's left over. There's no institutions, excuse me. They're going to be trying to share their stops here. The objective here is going to be to liquidate that bullish position from yesterday, to pick up anyone who's sharing stops with that, to pump tension as far as possible. That's what the bears really need right now. But they're in a tough spot because right now the bulls are being asked to defend their control. If the bulls do nothing, if they do not defend this, we'll get tension closing maybe there, could be here. If price comes down and it clears out those stops, we could see this go accelerate a little bit into the close. Really, really getting the bears into a good spot with 30-minute tension. The bears don't want this. The next event here would be to see daily tension come down to zero, which if they would need another massive algorithm to make that happen today. Soonest probably tomorrow. And so right now these bears are going, we made a lot of progress. I think they did do some good work getting tension under zero. They were able to wipe out these positions, the bears. So I think they did pretty good job, but there's still more that needs to be done. You can't just shove 30-minute tension under and then say we won. This is now bearish. That doesn't, no. What you've done is pressured the bulls, the dominant party, the ones who have been winning this easily for a while. And they don't like to lose their supremacy. They don't like to lose that. So right now, I think basically everybody waited for the expansion bar to come in because that's, demand to come in. Now the question is, are the bulls going to defend this 30-minute tension? Are they coming in to pick this up? Now that we kind of cleared out all the things that the bears could get done more easily today. So let's think about where are the bulls and the bears coming up in the future and what can they get done? The first thing, I think that if we move up like this, either one, this is kind of a lot, so this is probably more likely. There's a bearish sample. So if the market wants to find some bears to drive this further, leaning the market up is what's going to happen. A lean, where we lean up into a sample to test them, and then they drive it down. Where are the bulls? We could see a bullish, decay retest right here off of this decay retest low. That show up, and the bulls potentially pick this up. The question is, have they been trying to play? No. They haven't. Is this last ditch? Yes, but it doesn't really meet the first criteria of they were trying to buy in and having a hard time. So a decay retest, I'm not quite looking at that yet. If it happens, I'll pay attention to it, but it's not something I'm looking for because I don't think they've been trying to participate yet, like with liquidity. So what I'm watching right now is I think that we have some things lining up. You know, the 30-minute, we have this test here of the expansion bar and the bullish position. Our stops are right down here for the bulls. Our stops, I'm a bull by nature, so I blandish myself. So we can see that that's kind of how they're positioned right now. And if the bulls are going to come in, they're going to want to start to push over the next little while. One trouble that I think the market's going to run into is the fact that this looks a heck of a lot like this. And this is going to cause some emotional issues where these are basically the exact same thing. They're the same. So right now, anyone who's participating and has skin in the game, who played through the last one, is trying to play through this one, is going to have an echo that they're going to remember. It's like they're going to believe, like you just have this feeling, this is going to sort of sit sideways and eventually break higher. The problem with echoes is they motivate, or they give credence to credibility where that they shouldn't. It's not credible to say that this event is this event. That's wrong. So what'll happen is you get people piling into the long side because they feel like it's credible that it's going to break higher, and you get this swamp, and it's really irritating. In this instance, I don't think this is going to be one of those times where you get where you get sort of the false flag kind of thing where it mimics what happened before, because you get some sort of pattern and then a big crash. And this didn't do a big crash. So echoing that pattern doesn't indicate the reverse. In this instance, I just think it's going to be, people are going to pile in. Maybe it swamps it, maybe it kills it, maybe it shoots it up faster. I'm not sure. The point is that we're going to see an echo, and the bulls are going to be a little bit more motivated to just participate because this rhymes with yesterday. And that is it's just what happens. So we're sort of breaking out of the rhyme already. This is already different than yesterday. But up until this point, it has been almost identical. Now, the next thing to happen here, I think, is that the bears are going to need to try to push. I think they're going to need another position. I think that this is going to lean up, give us a sample here. The bears are going to have to test that and see if they can get something along the way, because one of the troubles they're having is they need an opponent. If you remember a couple of days back, they blew out all their opponents and then it rolled them over because they couldn't find anyone to go up against. And it was just every time they hit, they just blew out their opponent, and they couldn't find somebody to hold. And I think they're in a similar situation. I think the bulls are basically gone. I mean, these are not institutional positions, so they probably aren't sharing these positions here. This position right there has puts insuring it, so moving down, the market's not going to be able to get them to liquidate because they insured with options, so they don't have stops. There's no need for them because they have zero risk. It's just really going to be difficult to blow through those lows and take out anyone. I think that most people are either positive spread or they're really not in the market. So I don't think this is going to be that easy to get down to. If it does get down there, I think it's going to have a really hard time getting through there. So I think right now we need to reestablish bears, find some bulls, and see if we can get a bag holder. I think that's where we're at. Find a bag holder. So lean up, get our sample, see if we can find some bears, and that would look, could look like anything, just a little ways up. We get a bearish sample, then the market's going to lean down a little bit, see if they can find a bull. If those bulls can hit and they can drive it back against them, then they'll say, oh, okay, we got some stops down here, let's run them. And that'll help them pump tension further into the close. I think that's where we are. There's not a really good way to sample the bulls. That's why it's like, how are you going to sample bulls? They're like, getting to bulls means going through bears. So if you're going to, so that's, I think, what's happening next. We're going to get a lean. So we'll get, I call it a lean up, and that means you're leaning up into a bearish sample. So I anticipate that to happen. I think we could probably draw out a level-ish about here where the bulls sort of were kind of at, and there's always going to be lingering folks around there, so that's going to be a spot. We have an expansion bar about there. There's another one here, but I think I usually just track the highest one. So let's just put a level here. I'm going to color it yellow, and we're going to pay attention to it as an expansion bar, not as a bull or a buy spot. And we're also just going to remember that there's the bullish positions. That's about where they were too. So this is a spot I think that is a good spot to get to. If the bears want to really maintain their control, they're probably going to have to, if they get this to move up here and they get a sample right about there, I think that's a good spot for the bears to target, to say, if we're going to do it, that's where we should do it. There will probably be some inventory to dump there. And so that'll help that bearish position start to move. They'll need to continue to pump tension. Then the goal is to find a buyer to see if they can get a bag holder to go here. If they can't find a bag holder, it's not going to work out for them. The bears are going to have a hard time, and this is going to be daily tension here is going to do something like that, and that's going to be putting an upward pull. Just the fact that the bulls have it on 30-minute, and we'll see the 30-minute tension turn and start making its way back up. That's just what happens. So this right here is what I call it's the multi-time frame, and it's a divergence. But yeah, the daily is up, it's been up, it's staying up, and this is dipping under. And these can go down like that, and then they come back up, and it's the daily tension puts a pull on it. So the bears have work to do. They have not got this in the bag. They are not done. If they stop working, it will roll them over just right back up. We're going back up to new highs. That's where we are. So expectation is to see this go up, see if we can get a bear. And at that point, I think also tension's probably going to flatten out on the way up there. It's going to be like, well, what's happening here? Which is going to eliminate some of that, because they just have a little bit of time. They don't have a ton of time to make this happen. They're out of time. There's just a little bit left in the day, and they got to do what damage they can do, or that's all they get. Or maybe they're concerned. I don't know. Maybe they're concerned. Maybe you sit back and say, well, this is probably going to do this, so maybe we don't inject as much capital. But nonetheless, I think we're looking at a lean up here. That's where I think we are right now. A lean up into that bearish position. And then once we get there, you got to take a look at how the bears are doing, what their opportunities are. If tension comes up and they get a sample and it looks like that, it's like, oh, well, who are you guys going to trap now? Nobody? Because they need velocity to like move above and trap some bulls. You can't just get a couple. So that's where we're at. Let's see, let's take a look at the downside. We got to model the opposite way. If we just plummeted down here, what would happen is the velocity would probably move something like this if we decided to plummet like that, mostly sideways probably. Decay could come down and give us a decay retest, a multi-day decay retest. And at that point, I would pay attention to it. I'm not targeting it because I don't think it's something the bulls really want to do. But if we move down, I would start to pay attention to it. And if the bulls came in and you saw a nice pop out of it, and I would start watching tension. If they could impact tension out of a decay retest, I think that would be an excellent position to see it shoot back up. If the bears were to do really well instead of the bulls, they would need some big algorithms to get us down here. They would need bigger algorithms. So, I mean, it would be one money symbol to get us there and two money symbols to get us through. It will be exceedingly expensive, enormously, obnoxiously expensive, because they're going to have a hard time knocking out those bulls who are basically controlling this range. Something you should notice is that I'm treating both of these days basically as one. In my opinion, they're sort of the same thing. It's just a continuation of yesterday. We got up here, we didn't clear out one side, we didn't really reset the game. The bulls are not doing as well as we didn't get our target. We just got close to it. So the bulls are not doing as great. It was a little annoying to me yesterday. Just the way it had set up, I was a little. So I think this is just a continuation. It's just dragging out this whole situation. But if we get these bears to come in here, if they were to sell, we find some bulls. The bulls hit, the bears fold, and we shoot up through their stops, and then we come up here. We could likely hit those stops. And most likely that's where this would end if the bulls won it. If the bears decided to win, they're going to need some serious motivation to get this down, because of the positioning from yesterday's lows. So it's possible, but it's going to take a news event that is legitimate, not I don't even think like a fake news. Like a Trump tweet today wouldn't really do it. We need like, I don't know, somebody, I don't even know. I don't know. We'd need a decent one. So that's where we're at. Okay, that was my quick explanation where we are. Oh, let's take a look at options real quick. There is a little bit of volume that has showed up here. Mostly nothing too dramatic along that's happened this morning. Just not really super dramatic. There's a little bit this morning, but that's it. That's all that we've really had, and the rest of the volume's been, moderate. So I'll pop back in later on. Keep your eye out for that bearish sample. Then remember, the bears need a bag holder. So don't think, oh, the bears got it. They just got a sample. Now I can hold and shut my brain off. Don't be crazy. They need a bag holder. This is a problem bears have. It's one of the reasons that bears have such a difficult time driving markets in any sustained format, is because they're just all about, okay, go. They're not about, let's structurally grab up a bag holder and see if we can drive their accounts into the ground. And so they're going to run into issues really quick if they can't. So you need to make sure that when the bears come in, I anticipate that they'll try to hit, and I anticipate they're going to drive it down and try to find some bulls. And if those bulls can't hold on to a position, and start to fail, then the bulls are likely going to pick this back up, and you'll see tension start to curl and heading its way back up, and the bears are going to be in hot water. So that's where we're at. I'll tune back in later on today, and we'll walk through into the close. All right, see you later, guys.